keeping and protecting our English traditions. Looking at me now, you wouldn't know it, but when I was younger, I was quite an active fellow, nimble on my feet, which of course was very good traits for a traditional dance that I used to do when I lived in the UK. It's funny, but when it comes down to it, the Scottish were proud of their traditions. The Irish goes without saying, and the Welsh also. They supported their traditions too. But the English in general are, or at least were at that time, always willing to pull anyone different, even whilst they're defending their heritage and tradition, to try and pull them down, to try and, upset them and to try and ridicule them.
Yeah.
So my traditional interests were and still are to a certain degree English song and dance, traditional English song and dance. I used to do Morris dancing, and each year we'd wake up early on May morning and dance when the sun was rising. And we went to many craft fairs and folk events around the country. And that was to keep the tradition alive.
Yeah.
Keeping tradition alive. One of the events we performed in is in a town called Alford in Lincolnshire. One of the events, and each year they have a craft fair market, and many Morris sides took part and displayed around town. And on the afternoon, the main road was closed so that all the dancers could perform a processional dance called the Winster Processional. And you need to have the whole avenue closed down so they could do this.
Yeah.
Because it moves quite a pace. Now this year on August Bank Holiday, it'll be the 50th anniversary of the event. And hopefully it will be as big as, if not bigger than it was 45 years ago.
Yeah.
When I took part. This last weekend was the Appleby Horse Fair. Right? Event of 250 years standing in Cumbria. Every year, the newspapers try to give it a bad light when 30,000 people descend on the town with a normal population of around about 3,000 for the weekend in the early days of June. Headlines complaining about horses galloping at, quote, death-defying speed along a segregated road. I mean, come on. Race horses, I don't know if you've seen a race with race horses.
Yeah.
They gallop around about 35 miles an hour. So cart horses, not so much.
Yes.
Which is what we're seeing at the horse fair.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right. And it's not exactly the running of the bull at Pamplona. What they're witnessing.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And when the fair isn't there, I'm sure the crazy people are taking their horseless carriages along the same stretch of road at 60 miles an hour.
Yes, I know what's going down. Yeah.
Nobody said anything about that.
Yeah.
Now, although I've never been, I'm sure it would be interesting to know the Romany culture. And marvel at the paintwork on those barrel-shaped caravans that being pulled by heavy horses. Those traditional Romany things, and to enjoy the atmosphere of the horses having a washdown in the River Eden. Of course, there are people that go too far, especially when drink is involved. There are. They've got a huge gap, But you just need to ask a Paris Saint-Germain fan. They'll tell you.
Not sure for the people there were drinking. Yeah.
But these people are not the majority at the horse fair.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when it comes to business end of it, horses have to be bought and sold. So that whiskey will only be celebrated after the deals are done. Right?
Okay.
So let's give the Romany population their traditional space of 250 years, and let's embrace the event, not being funded by public money, by the way, except for the increased presence of law enforcement, which most of the time is there to orient and help rather than to arrest.
Okay.
And the rubbish left behind? All the litter left
Mm.
behind. No, can't be any worse than Glastonbury.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
It's a gift for Appleby for the local commerce to receive 30,000 visitors, most of which are eager to spend the money if the local traders know how to capitalize.
Mm.
Remember, people of Appleby, never to look a gift horse in the mouth. There you are.
Okay. Right. Okay. When it comes to,
So basically, it's keeping our traditional traditions.
yeah.
Just because it's a Romany traditional fair, people are trying to ban it and things like that. Off you go.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, obviously, you can have a view about gypsies, and sometimes, yeah, the bad apples in the gypsies and good apples. Okay, put it bluntly. I just remember that, yeah, we were talking about when gypsies used to descend upon a town. A lot of them were Catholics, and the local Catholic church offerings went up. So the Catholic churches were always quite grateful for the visits to them. Um, okay, it's we were talking about, I mean, obviously you're talking about yeah, we're talking about keeping our general things. I mean, you're talking about your Morris dancing days. Yeah, I mean, I was always brought up that the Morris dancings were just ridiculous people that dressed up and just danced around with bells and the handkerchiefs. Yeah. I mean, that is despite programs like children's programs like Blue Peter, showing it and everything else. Yes, it's a tradition. People like watching it. Yeah, like the maypole and things like this. Yeah, um, it's fun. It's enjoyable. You enjoy doing it. People like to watch it. The fact that they can, yeah, it still happens in various parts of the UK. Probably even the town I came from. I know they did have groups that did it. Um, and yes, it's a tradition that I don't think should be allowed to die, or yeah, that should be allowed to be kept going. Yeah. I can't see it being offensive to anyone. I know there are aspects of it that when somebody, yeah, darkened their face and did different things with variations on it. Okay. Um, but yeah, you keep these things alive, and people like you, it's almost like a museum piece as well. It has its traditions. We don't know exactly where it came from, but it's part of what we are. Um, yeah, and I do think if people enjoy doing something, why take that away from them? You're not harming anyone is the most important thing. Yeah. Okay. Horse gatherings are something a bit different. Okay. If it's been going for 250 years, it is part of the local culture, providing everybody there, as you said, behaves themselves and it's no problem. Yes, you're quite right about the rubbish left at Glastonbury by the people that claim to be environmentalists. Yeah. So let's,
Right.
yeah, these people don't pretend to be environmentalists. I mean, maybe they could be better educated and maybe provide some local skips for people to put their rubbish in or something, yeah, which wouldn't be beyond the wit of a local authority or somebody to do. Okay, I mean, I've been a site manager. You do that, okay? Segregation. It wouldn't be an impossible thing to organise. Maybe a bit better. Yeah, I saw the images of people flying over the thing, and yes, it was very negative. I didn't really know that much about it. I just knew it was there. The fact it had horses in it. Now, members of my family, I've owned horses. And yeah, I've been around horses. I've wired up underneath a horse box in my time. Yeah. Which, yeah, it's quite enjoyable, if not the most pleasant of environments. Yeah. It was a private thing. So I didn't have any masks or anything else on. And I'm still here today. Yeah. Um, yeah, I've just wired it up. Um, People that are around horses love their horses. They're not going to risk the horse's health, especially if it's like a trade as well. They're not going to risk horses' health. And when they say tearing along, um, yes, if you're adhering to the rules again, you're on a separate path that's known as a hacking path. There you go. I know the terminology. Yeah,
I think this is called flashway. I think it is.
that's right.
It's a,
Yes.
it's a stretch of road that is uh, set aside
Yeah.
just for this parading of these horses and the carriages.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. It's for hacking. Well, I think it's called hacking in the horse business. Yeah, they're racing them. They're not racing, but yeah, they're going up and down it. Okay, that's half the thrill of having a horse. Now, if it's on a designated thing where any pedestrians and anyone else knows they're not allowed to go on there. Also get risk of being hit by a horse. But like you say, even horses on full pelt aren't really going to be going so fast. And horses, the last thing a horse wants to do is to run into anything because they might get injured themselves. Yeah. Horses do look ahead. Yeah. Unless somebody jumps out quickly on them, horses do look ahead and will avoid anything. And they're more likely to throw a rider than hit somebody else head on. Yeah. Yeah. Because horses have a bit of aversion to being hurt themselves. They're not the most intelligent of creatures, but they're intelligent. They're survival. They have a survival that kicks in. Yeah.
But
Uh,
it's like this newspaper article
mm,
was saying death defying speeds,
yeah. Well,
but really, and it's like they're trying to say that the people that are driving the carriages
mm,
are being reckless when they're being no more reckless than a person in a car
yeah,
driving. I mean, they could say, well, we don't know what the horse is going to do. Well, the thing is that you don't know what the driver of a car is going to do. Just ask somebody who went to a Christmas market
yeah,
recently
yeah.
as the
Okay.
car plowed down 25, 30 people.
Well, I was going to say. I mean, somebody these people that operate that use the carriages and all that, they will have a survival instinct as well. They do know what they're doing mainly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and um and yeah, I mean, whatever I may not think gypsies, they do know their horses, and they'll say, well, they have youngsters. The youngsters are all trained in this world, yeah, and they all understand it. And you should see what these if normally if one of their own steps out of line and does something stupid, the others
Get
are
a
onto
ticket.
them, yeah,
Yeah, cool.
in ways that we probably wouldn't recognize as particularly good. Yeah, the guy
They'll
gets it.
protect them in front of us.
Yeah.
Once they get behind closed doors, I'm sure they get a thick ear.
Oh yeah. Yes, I was going to say, yeah. Or if it's an adult, they'll get a bit of a kicking to remind them. Yeah. Yeah, because they endanger each other. You don't do that. They're their community. I mean, I'm not all for communities breaking off and operating their own laws, but yes. Um, but yeah, that's a tradition. I mean, there are other traditions as well. I mean, where I come from, there's a yearly folk festival of traditional, well, I'll say British folk music. There is some American folk music slips in, but
Oh,
we,
unfortunately, yeah. Well,
yeah,
because they don't say it's a traditional English folk festival,
yeah,
they say it's a folk festival. So you start to get contemporary folk that bleeds into it,
yeah,
and
but
if you're not careful, overpowers it. And I'm a bit
yeah, yeah, it does happen. Yeah, I mean, you get um, Marina Morris songs coming and things like this, and I think she's a good artist. Whatever her views are, she's a good artist. And yeah, sometimes you think, yeah, what's that doing here? But they have because it's by the sea. They have the sea shanties as well. Yeah, and again, these are traditional British ones. Yeah. Um. Okay. Yeah. I mean, and if people and it's well attended. Yeah. So a lot of it, okay, you have to take it 70% of it is still traditional British music, as you would say. Yeah. It's folky music. It's like the shanties, some of the music, and okay, you got some modern ones there, by people that are singing in traditional ways. Yeah. And it's not even the Irish or anything else. It is traditional where I come from, the area, okay, east of England. We have our traditions there that might be slightly different from the West folk as well. Yeah. Um,
and I think that's why it's so important to protect these traditions
mm,
because it gives us a great insight as to our being, if you like.
yeah, I mean, um, there are local historic houses near where I come from, and every so often they'll have a Tudor weekend about things. Yeah, I know it's a little bit, but they'll have like musicians with hurdy-gurdies. If you talk about
Yeah,
music and,
right.
and,
Yeah.
and traditional dancing and things, or there are interpret. I mean, nobody was walking around at the time with a with a camera videoing it. Yeah. Um, but yes, how they interpret the dancing and how they interpret the music. Um,
Although hurdy-gurdy, if I'm not mistaken,
it's German.
is Italian.
Italian, German, yes,
And
yeah.
in the old days, they used crumb horns to
Well,
to have the dancing,
yeah,
the what's it called, dancing. Anyway, the dancing in the Tudor times.
yeah, okay, well, yeah, but it's still
Before crumb horns.
it's still known that they were. I mean, musicians were travelers as well, yeah, but it was a yeah, not getting away from British being English. Let's not
Right.
mistake at that time British and English are two different things, yeah. Um, well, British didn't really exist. The concept of being British didn't really exist. Um, but it is a again, yeah, it's enlightening people into the past. Um, what do we I mean, the question is, what do we consider being? Let's just say English. We're both Englishmen, okay? At this particular moment, we're both English. I've got Irish heritage, Welsh heritage, but I'm English. Yeah, um, quite recent as well. But yeah, what do we consider being English? Yes, I will listen to folk music, or they've just been about since still had a revival in the 1970s, if I remember rightly. Yeah, I played last night to a younger Brazilian person, one of my clients, a a traditional focus, Savoy, yeah, by Pentangle, yeah, the Pentangle version or something, yeah. If anyone wants to look them up, they are a yeah, they're a group that we're about. They're in about their fourth reincarnation, I think now, with various members leaving and not being available anymore for various reasons. But um, yeah, I played it, and it's just very folk. And he said, "Oh, it's just like Hotel California." So he saw the road. Yeah,
Very stringy, very plinky plinky.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
The
not that
thing is,
kind. Yeah,
groups like Pentangle and Steel Eye Span
yeah,
and groups like that,
yeah,
what they used to do is they used to get a traditional song,
mm,
try and play it in a modern way,
yeah,
right? And then you get people like Clannad
yeah.
and Enya, which is
She
a
was part of
spin-off,
Planet. Yeah, she was a member of the
right?
family. Yeah,
Uh,
or is. Yeah,
who play modern music,
yeah,
but in a traditional way,
yeah.
try
Because
traditional way,
yeah, well,
if
yeah,
that makes sense to you.
yeah, well, they're Irish. They are Canada Irish. Yeah, I mean, she couldn't speak. They couldn't speak English until about 6 years old or something, 7 years old. But yeah, yeah, they formed. But yes, but it's only in the 1980s. It was only about 10 years old. That type of music. Yeah, because
Yeah.
people say traditional Irish. It's not traditional Irish or traditional English even.
No,
Yeah,
but it's played in that
yeah,
traditional manner.
yeah,
It's new songs, but played in that traditional manner.
yeah. I mean, they Clan actually came into, if you like, the public recognition when they did the music to the TV series Robin of Sherwood.
Fine.
Now you can't get, which was about Robin Hood, the stories of Robin Hood, which is probably one of the most accurate portrayals of how Robin Hood may have been if it had been in the medieval period. Because yeah, you've got to remember that Robin Hood, sorry people, as we're talking about the English traditions, never really existed as a person. Yeah, King Arthur did. I would not have that King Arthur didn't exist, but yeah. So, that would be a stretch too far to tell me King Arthur didn't exist. I'm English. I know he did. Yeah. Um,
Done a little bit Welsh there as well.
yeah, I know Pendragon. Yeah.
There you
Pendragon.
are.
But yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I think at the end of the day, I think it's super important,
Mm.
especially these days, because everybody's complaining about the cultures not intertwining in England, and nobody is trying to assimilate. And the thing is that if the English people themselves are not willing to keep their own
So, yeah.
traditions,
Yeah.
then what are the newbies coming in, new kids on the block? What are they going to assimilate to?
Well, yeah. I mean, that I'm going to be quite honest. In universities at the moment, there's a move away from teaching actual English ideas and heritage and everything else because it's problematical for some reason. Now it's historical, it's there. Yes, there's going to be things that are not perfect, but you remember it and you learn from it. It's not promoting any any ideology now or anything else. I mean, when I mean, if we're looking at English heritage, as I said, my heritage is still Norman French as well. If you go back far enough in my heritage, um, the Normans came in and just did try to totally wipe out the English way of life, the harrying of the North, and yeah,
They all come
destruction.
from, right.
Yeah, but okay, again, but it's part of the heritage we have.